He lives there? I asked, almost in a whisper. The boy nodded. I've questioned God sometimes when prayers have gone unanswered, but answered prayer is still harder to believe. We had asked God to guide us, and He had set us down on Luis Alvarez's doorstep. Thank you, Lord, I said it aloud. What did you say? Thank you, I answered, addressing the boy. Thank you very much indeed. The name Alvarez was on the mailbox in the dingy vestibule, third floor. I raced up the stairs. The third floor hall was dark and smelled of urine and the dust. The deep brown walls were made of tin into which a full design had been pressed. Mr. Alvarez, I called, finding a door with the name painted in neat block letters. Someone called out in Spanish from the interior of the apartment, and hoping it was an invitation to come in, I pushed the door open a foot and peered through. There, seated in a red, overstuffed chair, was a slender man, dark-skinned, holding a rosary. He looked up from his beads, and his face lit up. You, Davy, he spoke very slowly. You're the preacher the cops they threw you out. Yes, I said. I walked in. Mr. Alvarez stood. I pray that you come, he said. You will help my boy? I want to, Mr. Alvarez. They won't let me in to see Luis. I have to give written permission from you and from the other parents. I give that. Senor Alvarez got out a pencil and paper from the kitchen drawer. Slowly he wrote that I had his permission to see Luis Alvarez. Then he folded the paper and handed it to me. Do you have the names and addresses of the other boys' parents? No, said Luis' father. And he turned his head slightly. You see, that's the trouble. I don't keep so close touch on my son. God, he brought you here, he'll bring you to the others. So just a few minutes after we had parked at random on a Harlem street, I had my first signed permission. I stepped out of Mr. Alvarez's apartment, wondering if it was possible that God had literally steered my car to this address in answer to this father's prayer. My mind craves for another explanation. Perhaps I had seen the address in the newspaper somewhere and retained it in my subconscious. But even while I was brooding over this, my way down the dark, tin-lined stairs, another event occurred which could not be explained by subconscious memory. Rounding a corner, I nearly collided with a young boy, about 17, who was running full tilt up the stairs. Excuse me, I said, without stopping. The boy looked at me, mumbled something, and started to run on. But as I passed beneath an overhanging light, he stopped and looked at me again. Preacher? I turned. The boy was peering through the darkness to have a better look. Aren't you the guy who was thrown out of Louis' trial? I'm David Wilkerson, yes. The boy thrust up his hand. Well, I'm Angelo Morales, Reverend. I'm in Louis' gang. You been up to see the Alvarezes? Yes, I told Angelo that I needed the permission in order to see Louis, and then suddenly I saw the hand of God on our meeting. Angelo, I said, I have to get permissions from each boy's parents because the Alvarez didn't know where the other boys live. But you do, don't you? Angelo drove all over Spanish Harlem with us, locating the families of the 6 other defendants in the Michael Farmer trial. As we drove, Angelo told us a little about himself. He would have been with the boys that night. They messed up Michael up, except that he had a toothache. He had said the boys had not gone into the park with any particular plan in mind. They had just gone out rumbling, looking for trouble. If he hadn't been Farmer, they'd have been jitterbugging. Jitterbugging, we discovered, meant gang fighting. We learned a lot from Angelo, and we confirmed much that we suspected. The boys in this particular gang, were they all like this? Were bored, lonely, and smolderingly angry. They craved excitement, and they took it where they could find it. They craved companionship, and they took that where they could find it. Angelo had an amazing way of making things clear. He was a bright, appealing boy, and he wanted to help us. Both Miles and I agreed that no matter what happened to the rest of our plans, we would keep in touch with Angelo Morales, and we would show him another way. Within 2 hours, we had every signature. We said goodbye to Angelo after getting his address and promising to keep in touch with him. We drove back downtown. Our hearts were singing. In fact, we did sing as we struggled windows up through the traffic snares of Broadway. We rolled the windows up tight and shouted out the good old gospel songs we had learned in childhood. The undeniable miracles that had taken place within the last hours gave us a fresh assurance that when we stepped out on Christ's promise to lead, doors would swing open all along the way. How could we know as we wove our way downtown singing that a few minutes later the doors would slam shut again with a thud? Because even though signatures did not get us in to see the seven boys, the district attorney was very much surprised at seeing us again so soon, and when he produced the required signatures, he looked like a man who beholds the impossible. He called the jail and said that if the boys would see us, we must be allowed in. It was at the jail itself that a strange and totally unexpected block was thrown in our way, not by the boys, nor by the city officials, but by a fellow clergyman. The prison chaplain, who had the boys in his care, apparently considered that it would be disturbing to their spiritual welfare to introduce a new personality. Each of the boys had signed a form saying, "We'll talk with Reverend David Wilkerson." The chaplain struck out the will and wrote in, "Will not." And no amount of pleading would persuade the city that his decision should be overruled. Once again, we headed back across the George Washington Bridge, very, very puzzled. Why was it that we had received such dramatic encouragement only to have the road end again at a blank wall? It was while we were driving along the Pennsylvania Turnpike late at night, about halfway back to our little country town, that suddenly I saw a ray of hope in the darkness around us. "Ha!" I said aloud, and woke Miles abruptly from a nap. "How what?" "That's what I'll do." "Well, I'm glad it's settled," said Miles, curling up and closing his eyes again. The ray of hope was in the form of a man, a remarkable man, my father's father. The hope was that he would let me pay him a visit, to place my puzzlement before him.